So, I've been watching some Peanut Butter Gamer lately, more specifically his second channel, Peebs. I've enjoyed his unscripted top 10s and was inspired by a couple of them to make some top 10s of similar topics. I tried not to repeat any of his picks, but I wanted to tackle 10 good games in this video specifically that I will probably never play again and why. Again, none of these games are bad, but for one reason or another, I just probably won't ever pick them up again. Let's get started. This game really impressed me, and I really liked playing it. It's a level-based action-adventure game in which you play as Kina, who uses her mysterious power to send wandering spirits to the afterlife. Developer Ember Lab spent years making short films and commercials before shifting to game development. For an inaugural outing, Kina is phenomenal. The level of polish of her animations, the models, and the environments are all very impressive. Their commitment to animation does give it a cinematic platformer feel at times because breaking animations is difficult. You really have to commit to your actions you have chosen. But the game is fun and well made, so why won't I ever play it again? Well, the final boss gave my family nightmares when I played it for the very first time. And I mean, we have, as a family, seen more terrifying things than this, but it took me a few tries to get through this boss, and I guess my family sitting there on the couch watching it over and over and over again as I struggled to beat it late at night just sort of seared it into our memories. Almost all of us went to bed and had nightmares about this boss. It's a great game, and it's not meant to be terrifying, but just due to the circumstances, I probably won't ever pick it up again. To be clear, this is not the only game that's ever given me nightmares. I also had, on a side note, I had trouble after playing the casino part of Sonic Heroes and playing Wild Arms 2 for the very first time on the old CRT television that I used to have. Gave me nightmares as well. For some reason, it doesn't give me nightmares when I play it on a modern display, which I know is weird, but I don't know. It's just something about the frame rate, I guess. I don't know. It was weird. So this is the only one on the list that's about nightmares, though. So Kina, Bridge of Spirits, great game, but probably won't ever play it again. I rented Gran Turismo 2 back when it came out for the PS1 and really enjoyed it. I bought 4 a few years later and can honestly say that it's my favorite game in the series. I've tried the other entries over the years, but none of them have really come close to 4 either before it or since. After a while, I just sort of quit trying the new ones. I wish 4 would get a remaster as it's kind of a pain to play nowadays. I still have my PS2, but getting it set up and looking good on modern displays gets more and more of a hassle as the years go on. It's hard to emulate it as the graphics scale well, but every time I have tried, there are visual glitches in the two-dimensional assets. I will definitely play 4 again, I hope on this channel, but I will probably never play any of the other entries in the series ever again. I could very well see a situation in the future where my PS2 dies, and then I never play 4 again either. Come on, Polyphony Digital. A remaster of 4 would be amazing. I have replayed every Zelda game over and over except for 2, which are both on this list. The first one is Majora's Mask. Now, neither of these games that I'm going to talk about in the Zelda series are bad. Remember the name of this list. Good games that I'll probably never play again. But Majora's Mask stresses me out. And it's not the presentation, it's the 3 days mechanic. Again, I can see the appeal, but timers in games always make me nervous. The escape sequence in Metroid also stresses me out, but the difference is that those are minutes. Whereas if you play Majora's Mask, you're always on the clock. After I play it a while, I get sort of exhausted, and that makes it not as fun for me to play. Again, I'm not saying it's a bad game. I have beaten it twice, once the original version and once on the 3DS. And I really like the story, I like the mechanics, I like so much about this game. I just never felt like I could take my time with it. And I know that you play the Song of Time backwards and it slows the clock down and you got plenty of time, but like just the clock being there makes me feel like I don't have plenty of time, even though I don't think I ever was in a situation where I ran out. Just the stress of it just gets to me. It's just not a mechanic that has ever been one that I've really enjoyed. And like I said, in small bursts, it's fine, but a whole game that's surrounding the mechanic of, running out of time, I don't know, it just stresses me out too much. So, despite the fact that I've beaten it twice, despite the fact that I highly regard it, it's a fantastic game, I just don't think I'll come back to it like I do Wind Waker or A Link to the Past or even Breath of the Wild. I had a lot of fun with the remake that came out on PS4, but I have never connected with this series like a lot of other people have. The older I get, the more I realize that the run-and-gun platform game popularized by this and Jak 2 is just not for me. I'm not saying they're bad. I just get a little bored with the shooting, and when the game focuses more on the shooting than the platforming aspects, I just tend to check out. These games tend to have segments where they drop you into an arena and you just blast away enemies for what feels like forever. And I just get tired of that. I just would rather be jumping and solving, platform puzzles. Again, I would never say this is a bad way to make a game. And the platform sections, I think there's one early on where you go into one of the levels and there's like a section where you jump up to the top of a platform. It's like an obstacle course. But when you get to the top or when you get to the end of a challenge and the payoff is just another gun, it just always left me feeling, I don't know, disappointed. And again, I don't want anybody to think that means I don't like this game or this style of game. It's just, I don't know, it's just not for me. I just prefer my 3D platform games to be a lot more like Mario 64, I guess. I just really am attached to that style of gameplay. I have considered trying Rift Apart one of these days, but I do not think I'll go back and play any of the previous games in the series, and I probably won't play the PlayStation 4 remake ever again. It was great, I enjoyed it, but it's just not something that I'm going to go back and play over and over again like Mario 64 or even the original Jak and Daxter game. I love and hate this game at the same time. I love its aesthetic, I love its characters, I love the way it subverts conventions in the industry. Undertale is the anti-hero to conventional RPGs, and it is absolutely a game that needs to exist in this industry to push the genre forward. Undertale is one of the reasons why we have seen a resurgence in this genre, I believe, and as such, I am grateful that it exists. But I have never played another game that has made me actively hate completing it. It's not the challenge, although beating Sans on Christmas Day is one of my all-time favorite gaming moments. It felt like scaling Mount Everest. But the thing they don't tell you about climbing Everest is that the view is a bit spoiled by all the people who have left their poop on the mountain that is frozen. That's what it's like to complete Undertale. The only way to see the good endings is to complete the genocide run last. So you climb this enormously satisfying challenge, you experience this really great game, and then the game makes you feel like crap. I understand that this is the point, but that does not mean I want to subject myself to it ever again. I climbed the mountain, but the view was spoiled, and I do not think I'll ever climb it again. Again, not a bad game, a fantastic game, a landmark game, but just not one that I think I'll ever play again. This game is great. It's a level-based Minecraft clone with an aesthetic of Dragon Quest. The issue is that it is so great, I kind of completed it, and unlike Minecraft, the free play aspects are more limiting. There is no mode that compares to the freedom of Minecraft's creative mode. I do think it handles objectives in a way that is more to my playstyle, but that has the side effect of making the game a lot more story-based, and once the story ends, you've seen what the game has to offer. So again, it's a great game, but when I have the block building itch, I just would rather play Minecraft, and I do not play Minecraft much to begin with, so I do want to try the sequel though, one day. The first Myst game I ever played was Myst 3 Exile. I really liked it, and I wanted to play the other games in the series, but I did not really get into Riven. And the original Myst feels more like an experiment than a game. I did beat Myst way back in the day and escape the island, but I remember it being a constant exercise in frustration. The puzzles are a bit too cryptic for their own good. I like the world of Myst and its concept, and I still go back and play 3 from time to time, although I've only beaten it once. But while I do not hate Myst, and I recognize its place in gaming history and culture, once was enough for me. I got an unofficial guide and a couple of novels from a thrift store a few years back. It kind of put me in the mood to pick it up again, but I've just never done it, and I probably never will. I love Kingdom Hearts. I grew up in a very Disney-centric family, and the gimmick of exploring Disney worlds just grabbed me from the start. But the more I played, the more I fell in love with the cast of characters and their story. I understand it's not for everyone, but it absolutely is for me. But the DS games, while novel at the time and chock full of great story content, looking at you 358 days, they are rough to play these days. Throw in the enhanced cinematics included in the remaster releases, and there really is no point in going back to them. If you want the combat, there are better examples of it, and if you want the story, you can just watch the cutscenes. So, yeah, I probably won't ever play a Kingdom Hearts DS game or a Game Boy Advance game again, because there's just better ways to play that franchise now. It's another reason that I've never really tried the mobile series, even though they try to make it like really relevant to the story recently. I just would rather play Kingdom Hearts 2 or Kingdom Hearts 1 or even Kingdom Hearts 3 than, a scaled down version on a smaller screen. And especially when I know that anything they release on the mobile versions, they're eventually going to give like a 3D cinematic for whenever they do like a later release. So what's the point? A friend of mine bought me this really cool book a few years ago, and while thumbing through it, I found this great map of the original Metroid, and I had an NES Classic hooked up at the time, so I fired it up, and less than an hour later, I had beaten the game for the first time. That said, Zero Mission is superior in every way that matters to me, and while I'm glad I beat the original, I do not see any set of circumstances where I would return to it. And if I had to draw my own map, then I am sure I probably would never have beaten it in the first place. All the rooms look exactly the same, and despite the game not being all that big, even having already beaten it, I do not think I could find my way through it unaided. I respect its place in gaming history, and I love both the series and the genre that it spawned, but once was enough for me. I'll probably never play NES Metroid ever again. That probably also goes with the GBA Metroid 2. I own a copy of it. I put it in the GBA a couple times and played a little bit of it. I think I even have a video of me playing some of it on this channel, or at least on my Let's Play channel. It's somewhere on the internet. I have footage of me playing Metroid 2 on the GBA, but I don't know. I think I'll just stick with the remakes. And last but not least is our second Zelda game, and I do not usually like to put games from one genre on a list, but I couldn't pick between these two, so I just separated them out in the video. I loved this game when it was new. I was invested in it, and using the Wii Remote to play it was so much fun to me. Sure, it was a little clunky, but as cheesy as it sounds, I used to push the coffee table back from my living room couch and play almost the whole game standing in front of the television, just having a blast. Since then, I've tried to replay it a few times, but I have rarely even made it past the first dungeon. I picked up the Switch port, hoping that it was just the motion controls, but I did not make it any further. I think playing the game in the moment, those visuals, the controls, and the narrative pulling you in, was just a once-in-a-lifetime combination that I can't have again. When I did not know how the game ended and was pulled along by the strong narrative bond between Link and Zelda, it was easier to overlook its flaws. The pacing in this game is more egregious than its controls. Again, I think I overlooked it then because I was having fun and I was invested, but coming back to it, everything takes forever, and there is no way to speed it up. Most 3D Zelda games have large tutorials, but in most of those games, you have some way of speed running or skipping through it. Like, I go back to Breath of the Wild, it's got a huge tutorial area, but if you've already beaten the game once, you can beat that whole tutorial in just like a few minutes, and then you're back in the game. But you can't really do that with Skyward Sword. I mean, the game has like an ongoing tutorial. It feels like every new area you go into, somebody has to tell you how to play the game some more. It just makes the game hard to pick back up. I do not think the game is bad, and I can't think the game is bad, because when it came out, I loved it when it was new. But coming back to it now, it just feels tedious, and I just would rather play another Zelda game. But I respect it, and like I said, whenever I played it the first time, I can't even express to you how much I loved this game when it came out. Like, I genuinely thought at the time it was just my favorite Zelda game ever, but I can't even, it's not even probably in my top 5 now, because every time I try to come back to it, I just can't get into it like I did before. So that's my list of good games I'll probably never play again. Thank you so much for watching. Give me your list in the comments. Have you beaten any of the games on this list over and over? You can check my companion list on this topic by following this link. As always, have a great day.